So I'm going to show you how I do my headshot processing in Lightroom. Things are a little different this year because of COVID. Normally, when I take my headshots, it's just kind of an assembly line factory, just like bam, 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 come in, stand there, take a picture, move, next person. I usually have them write their names on a sheet of paper so I can then ID them after the fact. But this year, things were more spread out. We had about 2-minute time slots for each person, and so I had time to ID them in Lightroom and select a pick in Lightroom before the next person showed up. So let's dive into Lightroom and take a look. So this is this is men's tennis, and you can see I've already made picks, and I did these all after I took their I took 4 photos of each of them and selected the one I wanted to use, and applied the keyword to their name or to their photo. So they're all ID'd. And so the first thing I'm going to do is filter down by my picks. And so let's just filter in. So I've got my men's tennis athletes right here, and they're all ID'd and they're all flagged. So what I'm going to do is rename them. So when I export them, I want their headshot to be named, the file name to be what their name is. So I'm going to select them all and go to Library and Rename Photos. And I have this this template set up. It's just keywords. That's all it is right there. And so whatever keyword is in the photo will get put into the file name. And you can see right here, Andrew Cabasi, that's the keyword, and that's what the new file name will be. So select OK. So now all these files are renamed. Perfect. And now I just want to get into to do my cropping. And you can see out of the camera, the cropping is kind of weird, and you'll see why in a minute. But basically, I want two different crop versions to come out of this one photo. And so to start with, I'm gonna do a square crop because that's what we want. That's what we use in the on the website. So select the photo, and I'm gonna go to click the R key and change to 1:1 aspect ratio, and I'm gonna bring that down in there. And when I'm cropping these, generally, my general rule is that, and this is going to be a bad one because I don't want the angle, but I'll fix that in a minute. Generally, I want their face in the middle, but everyone's got a different size face, a different shape, so it's not hard and fast. But basically, I don't want their eyes to be above this line, and I kind of want their shoulders to go into those corners. That's the rule of thumb, but obviously some of the smaller athletes, maybe their shoulders won't go to the edge, and maybe some of the larger athletes, it will go higher up. So we'll select that. Say done. That's close enough. And the other thing I want to do is adjust the highlights because my lights were just a little hot. So I'm going to turn my highlights down to -40. And so that's my settings. That's what I want. So I'm going to copy those from here, and I want to copy basic tone and crop, and then I'm just going to paste those onto the other one. So come back to my grid view, select all, right click, develop settings, paste settings. So that's just going to paste them all across the board, and it gets the exposure the same on all of them, and it gets the crop pretty close. And so then I can just quickly go through each one to adjust the crop individually. So I'm going to hit R again to come in here. And I'm going to hold down, or I'm not going to hold down, but I'm going to use the keyboard, Control and the arrow keys to go back and forth to the ones I want. I want to straighten him up a little bit because he was crooked. And you see, that's you originally saw that I corrected him and then undid it. And the reason I undid it is because I would have copied that angle correction to all the other photos, and then I would have had to reset that for all of them instead. So I got rid of the angle, and now I could just do it on him. So Control arrow key, just goes to the next one, and again, just kind of get that eyes, that kind of the general face in the middle. And the other thing I'm keeping an eye on is the bottom here. I don't want the bottom to be right at where that neckline is, so I want to give it a little bit of room, one way or the other. And I'm just going through each one of these, and some of them you can see kind of need to be adjusted a little bit more than others. I don't know what I was doing there. That one was really crooked. And as I'm doing that, the other thing I'm doing is kind of keeping an eye on these photos down here, because when they appear on the website in kind of the grid view, I want them to all look similar. I don't want you to be looking at the grid view on the website and then realize that, like, oh, look, that one looks off. That kid looks really big, or that kid looks really small. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on what these look like here along the bottom. So again, just go through each one. For a sport like tennis, this is a pretty quick process. Football takes a little bit longer, but again, it's way easier than doing all this in Photoshop. All right, so there we go. That's in general, that looks pretty good. So we're gonna click done, come back out to my library grid view, and I'm going to hit the 8 key. Oops, I'm gonna Control All, then hit the 8 key. And so I'm giving them all green labels, and they're picked in green. That means we're good to go. The next thing I want to do is create that second crop view. And to do that, I'm gonna right click while they're all selected again, right click and create virtual copies. And when that's done, I'm gonna hit the 7 key to label those yellow. And then I'm gonna come down here and filter by yellow. So I've got all these yellows, and I can come back in to the crop on this first one, the R key. And I'm gonna change that to 2:1. Let me get rid of the angle again and set that crop. So this is for our website. And what I like to do is I want to be able to have, in case we have to write a story about someone we don't have an action photo on, I will have a headshot photo that is cropped and ready to just dump into our website in the correct dimensions. And that's that. And you can see it's also, there's some room on the side here where I could dump a logo real quickly if I wanted. But basically it's so in case we need to do a web story on somebody we don't have action photos of, we can take their headshot real quickly. It's already pre-sized, ready to go. So again, I'm going to copy that one and come back to the grid view, select all, right click again, and under develop settings, paste settings. And now that's going to copy that crop to all our photos. And we can come back into this first one again and hit the R key. And while, again, I'm using the control arrow keys to go back and forth. And so this one, I want to straighten him up again. And in the square ones, I was real conscious about how these kind of looked, the similarities between them, and making sure the sizing was all right. For these photos, I'm not as concerned about that, primarily because they're never really going to be seen next to each other, so it doesn't matter as much. But in general, same rules apply. I'm trying to keep the face in the middle. I'm trying to get the whole shoulders. I don't. One of the things that these may get used for in the future is if we needed to get a vertical headshot of someone, I could come in after the fact and take a vertical out of what's already there. And of course, I have the originals all in Lightroom, so I could do that in Lightroom as well. But that doesn't happen that often, so we rarely need portrait versions of headshots, so I don't create those. But you could easily just have a portrait version as well, a square version, a portrait version, a horizontal version. You've got all three of them. It's not that time consuming to just add a different version of the crop. And so there we go. So we come back to the grid. Let's clear my filter. So there's all my photos. There's a square version, a crop version for each one of them. I'm going to select them all, and now I'm going to finish up my tagging. And you remember at the start I just had tags. I only had their name as a keyword because we're gonna make that file name based on the keywords. Well, but I need to filter these even more. So I want to make sure that I've added some more keywords, including sport and headshot. So I'm going to add headshot and men's tennis. And you can see, obviously, if I had added these beforehand, those would have been included in the file name. So I don't want to do those until I'm done and ready, and they've already been renamed. So now we're ready to export. So I'm going to come over into my publish services, and I've got a publish service set up with Google Drive file stream. And basically, what happens is, as I'm going to publish these to a folder on my desktop, and that folder is going to be synced with Google Drive. So as I publish these out of Lightroom into that folder, they will then sync up to the cloud on Google Drive into a Google Share Drive that other people in the department that have access can go and find those headshots and whatnot. And so the way we do that is I've got this folder structure, and we've got this year, and I'm going to create this is first for this year, so I'm going to create a folder set called Men's Tennis. And create. And then inside Men's Tennis, I'm going to create a smart folder. And I'm going to call that 0. And M10 headshots. Headshots. And these are yellow, so I'm going to go horizontal, HRZ. And the reason I label these, I have the 0, is because most of the other folders most of the other directories that are going to be in this Men's Tennis directory are going to be file specific events. So a match, a game, and so those will be a full date string, year, month, date, and this kind of just fits in. It basically makes these folders kind of fit in that same structure, but they don't have a specific date because it's possible that, and especially this year, I know I didn't get everyone's headshots done, so I'm going to have to take headshots later on, probably in the spring, and kind of supplement those. And so it won't be all one date. And so I've got my filters now. These are left over from the last one I did. So pick flag is flagged. Label color is yellow. Horizontal ones were yellow. Capture date, and this is what I was talking about, the multiple dates. I set my capture date in the range, basically the range of this academic year. Because if I take a photo tomorrow, if I take one next month, if I take one in January, they will still then populate into this smart filter. And I've got headshot, and I can get. So this is where Lightroom is a little tricky. Is if I put Men's Tennis, it's going to pick up women's too, because Men's Tennis is in women's tennis. The characters of Men's Tennis are in women's tennis. So what I'm going to do is add another one and other metadata, keywords, and doesn't contain, and then I'm going to say women. And so if I click create, so there they all are. And I want to create a new one. And again, we're going to call this 0, M10, headshots, and these are going to be the square ones. And the square ones were green, so I'm going to change my label to green, and everything else should be the same. And there's my green ones. And so now I can publish each one of these. Go publish this one. I can publish that one. See up there, it's probably getting sent to the hard drive, and then we can actually look and see. Yep, and there they go. Now they're getting uploaded to Google File Stream. So the other place I need these is on a website. So I can come back into my green ones, because the square ones are the ones that can go to the website. And I have them right now. We just exported them all to Google Drive, and I exported the full-size versions of them. I don't need the full-size versions of them on a website. So I've got I'm going to export, and I've got a little template set up for headshots, and basically I'm going to export these photos to a folder on my desktop called headshots. And these ones are all 1,000 by 1,000. So bigger than I need on the website, but they'll get scaled, but not huge. So then I can come over to Presto, add my albums, headshots, and just drag those all in there. And then once those upload, then they're ready to be put on to they're ready to put onto the people's bios. So that's kind of the process. Like I said, it's a little different this year, and you can kind of tweak it to your own needs. I want those 2 different versions of the crops. You could have the same, you could have different, you could just have one. But you can see Lightroom makes it way easier to crop and publish and get those photos in a way that you can access them easily. So hope you enjoyed it.